Welcome to Motivation Local, a podcast where we explore how place shapes identity, community, and the way we see ourselves. I'm your host, Corey Sadlemyer, and I'm grateful you've joined me for Season 2. I'm grateful too for the generous support from TELUS STORYHIVE, supporting so many podcasts across Alberta and British Columbia. Lived experience doesn't just shape how people view their community, it also influences how they view themselves. The sum of these experiences and memories forms a narrative about place. At the heart of this season, we continue to explore how these stories intersect, how community motivates its people, and how people in turn motivate their community. This year, our conversations will stretch further. We'll still share stories rooted in Medicine Hat, but with a bit of a twist. Many of this season's episodes will be presented through the eyes of some of our more creative community members. Each will bring a unique perspective on the connection between place and identity. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Motivation Local is created on the traditional lands of the Blackfoot and Cree peoples, within the homelands of the Métis Nation, and at the meeting place of Treaty 4 and Treaty 7. These lands have been gathering places for generations, and we honor and learn from the deep relationships Indigenous people continue to have with this land. I look forward to sharing this new season of conversations with you on Motivation Local. Today on Motivation Local, we're sitting down with someone whose fingerprints are all over Medicine Hat's creative heartbeat. If you've been to a local musical, caught a reimagined Christmas classic, or stumbled across a podcast telling stories that don't always get told, chances are you've felt the quiet, steady impact of Travis Boser. Travis is one of those rare community builders who doesn't just show up, he creates the stage, invites people in, and helps them find their voice. His journey winds through Medicine Hat's musical theater, through his time at Medicine Hat College, where he was recognized as Student of the Year, and all the way into projects like Canada Out of the Closet. What I love about Travis is that he chose to build a creative life here. In a world that tells artists they need to leave small cities to matter, Travis does the opposite. He proves that meaning, belonging, and collaboration can be found right where we stand. And he shows us that creativity isn't just performance, it's connection, empathy, and the courage to tell true stories. Today, we talk about growing up in the arts, the identity work that shapes us, and what it means to root yourself in a community that is still learning, still changing, and still finding its voice. This is a conversation about what it means to create in Medicine Hat and why the work Travis does matters far beyond the stage. Let's get into it. Travis Boser, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show because we'll probably talk a little bit about this later, but you yourself have some experience with podcasting, and so that'll be kind of neat to talk about. Did super in-depth research on you ahead of time, so
I hope you called the right people at least.
Yeah, voice like that TV show where you used to have like the voices from the past will appear.
Like what do they call that? Like Here's Your Life, or there's like that. Yeah.
Or the Ghost of Christmas Past or something like that. Yeah. So when people hear your name in Medicine Hat, they'll often associate that with being a teacher, theater, storytelling, community impact. You think about your own origin story. Where did it all begin for you?
My origin story is, I think, pretty rooted in like a small town, because I grew up in a small town in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And so kind of that small town mentality and that community that comes with that, where everyone knows your name, everyone knows your business, for good or for bad. Yeah. And I always say to people, like, if you've ever watched Corner Gas, that's basically the town I grew up in, right? Yeah. And so,
what was the hometown?
And my hometown is Sceptre, Saskatchewan, so it's right on the Great Sandhills, like on the north end of the Great Sandhills. Yeah. And so I spent my first 18 years there. Yeah. And yeah, that's definitely the origin place for me, I think. And so much of who I am and so much of how I interact with my community, I think, comes from that small town upbringing. Yeah. And really that focus on kind of that collective working together to achieve the goal. I mean, when you're in a small town, if people don't volunteer and step up, nothing happens, right? So, and a lot of things that in the city are kind of paid positions, in small towns are often volunteer positions. And so I feel like when I look at kind of how I interact with my community and how I try to create my community, whether that's living in Medicine Hat now or what those kind of sub communities are, I think it's very rooted in that small town upbringing.
That's interesting. I had Chassie Carnes on the show last year, and she was from Manitoba, and I had asked her, like, what do you miss about your hometown? And so she talked about those pieces, and she goes, but that's really what I was trying to build here. Yeah. Like I was trying to replicate that feeling within whatever community it was that I was trying to establish.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, that's where I'm from in Saskatchewan. That's really easy because everyone moves here. So, like, my husband and I will be out at Costco or wherever, and they'll just be, like, random people that come up and they'll say hi. Yeah. And he'll just kind of look at me after and be like, Leader, Scepter, somewhere out there. Right? Yeah. I'm like, it's just, But, yeah. And I would say that that's probably, I like that you're, like, replicating that everywhere. Because I think that that's really probably what I've done too, right? And it's easier in some ways, in some places than it is in others. But I like that analogy.
Yeah. What's the earliest moment that you felt the pull towards performing in the arts?
I think like the first time I started to get a laugh as a performer, like the first time you would say something and your family reacts. And I have a distinct memory of being pretty little, like probably under 5. Yeah. And we were at my grandparents' house and the kids were kind of playing around and doing a little like performance thing. And, and I honestly remember what I did. I just remember the adults laughing. Yeah. And I sat there and was like, oh, I like that feeling. Yeah. I like that like engagement. And like, they thought what I did was funny. And very much what I do in arts is performing arts. I am not a visual artist. Yeah. I draw a very great stick man. Yeah. And so for me, that was my first like interaction with that kind of thing. And then I just pulled that and I wanted to continue to do that in any way I could. Yeah. Sometimes it's to make people laugh. With theater, you can also make people cry. You can exude all those emotions. And then I felt a very strong desire to just learn as much about it as I could, like the technique of it and getting into music and other things too that, but yeah, it's that interaction and that feedback was definitely the thing that sucked me right into it.
And were there opportunities for that in Scepter?
Very few. I laugh because my husband's a band teacher where we live here, and like I always say to him, we didn't have that. And not that to say that small towns don't. There are some that do. Yeah. But it wasn't something we had. And so we had piano lessons. There was a variety of piano teachers. There would sometimes be teachers that would come out. Primarily what we did was in Leader, which is kind of the biggest town in that area.
From Richmond.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, there would be like piano teachers, and then there would be the odd person that would come out from Medicine Hat to do drums, or from Kindersley or somewhere like a bigger place to do some things. But that was really it as far as music goes. And then we had a wonderful drama program in our school in Leader, all extracurricular. It wasn't a class that we got like credit for or anything. But it was such a great little club that we had going. And our teacher was so wonderful at finding shows that kind of fit what she had for a class, and would pick shows like knowing this person's going to shine in this thing. And so I think
super formative, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I always just say I wish she would have had us audition for stuff, because when I started auditioning as an adult, I was like, that would have been great to do. But that was definitely, I would say, like those dudes, like taking piano lessons and then getting involved in that drama aspect when I was in junior high probably was the first time that I really like stepped out to do it kind of formally. Yeah. And that was a game changer for me.
Okay. Yeah. So you make your way to the metropolis of Medicine Hat. You're at Medicine Hat College. Shout out 2022 Student of the Year.
I was, yes.
You didn't bring the medal, though.
No, I left the award at home. I didn't want to. You don't want to brag too much. Right?
And lots of involvement with Medicine Hat Musical Theater. And so how have those two organizations kind of shaped your connection to the community?
Yeah. I moved here about a decade ago.
Yeah.
I ended up in Saskatoon for a few years and just didn't feel settled there. I think it was too big for me in the end, actually. And I had family here, and it was very likely that my parents were going to retire here, which they did. Yeah. And so I kind of was like, I want to just be closer to that. And so when I first moved here, I kind of would hear a little bit about theater and hear about different things. And I was working in the hotel industry at the time. Okay. And then that kind of fizzled out. And so I decided, I'm going to follow this dream and I'm going to become a teacher. That's what I really wanted to do. And in my life, I had other things to figure out before I was going to be successful at obtaining a degree and doing things like that. So, for the college, it's such a great spot for our city and our corner of the province. Like, to be able to do my Bachelor of Education entirely in Medicine Hat, not have to pick up my life and move to a bigger city again or do anything like that. And then there was a cohort of 32 that I did my actual B.Ed with, right? And so it just formed such a great little tight-knit community. And then the college itself, like I just found such a supportive community for students, an inclusive community for students. And then I just wanted to get more involved and help out. And so an opportunity came along to be a student representative for the Board of Governors. Okay. And so I jumped at that opportunity. I got to do that for my third and fourth year. And just to be a part of kind of the decisions, for this institution that I'm spending this time at. And to hang out and really spend my days like just all in there, like working on my school, but then also giving back and helping make decisions and talking about big picture things for the actual institution.
That's a cool experience.
It was a great experience, right? And then, and I found my home at Medicine Hat Musical Theater. And I always tell my students, like, that's where if I'm not here or at home, I'm probably at the Playhouse. And so I just got involved there. The first show I was in there was Sister Act in 2017. Okay. And I got kind of encouraged to come and audition. I had done a couple other shows with a couple other groups in town. And then once I got there, it was just like, these are my people in Medicine Hat. This is where my community is. This is where I have that shared interest, but like also like, I think there's something vulnerable about being in theater at times, right? And like you're performing in front of people and you're auditioning for people and it's such a vulnerable place to be. And we all do it together collectively. And we've all got the same goal to put on this amazing show or to further our organization. And it's, I think definitely like the strongest community I've had has been at Medicine Hat Musical Theater since the small town that I grew up in. Right. Like, that's cool. It's like my little pocket of small town that I have.
Yeah. You recreated it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What, like you talked about going to Saskatoon. So you've sort of answered this question in a way, but what's kept you rooted here? Like, because there are bigger opportunities and bigger stages to get involved in.
There are. It's a question I've thought about a lot lately. I'm a teacher in Alberta, so there's been lots of thought about what's keeping me here. Medicine Hat, specifically Medicine Hat, has always, I think, felt a little bit close to home for me. Like, geographically, this is a city that I interacted with from as early as I can remember, because this was the closest kind of bigger center from where we grew up. And so we were here on Saturdays to do shopping, and our eye doctors and like all that stuff was in town. So we would come in a lot for those things. And I had family that lived here. My older brother moved here after finishing high school. So there was a real connection to that. And then I think that family draw is what really brought me here in the first place. Right. And so I would say definitely that has been a big thing that's kept me here. And I mean, I've just spent some time talking about it. I mean, Medicine Hat Musical, like it's a real community for me. And there's some tough days where, as a queer Albertan, it's not always the easiest place to exist, especially in this corner of the province. There can be a lot of negativity around my identity in that way.
Right.
And so having a place like Medicine Musical Theater, having my actual family here,
Right.
but also that place too has just been, I think, what really does keep me here. You know, I teach elementary school. I have a great school community. I have a great job, but I have a job that I could do anywhere. Right. It's not a very specialized job. And so I think that my community is so rooted in the theater and in those things that it's what keeps me here and what makes me want to persevere through the negativity that comes on.
It's interesting because we don't, you know, we all have our day jobs or our things, right? Whether those are sports or other things, but it really is those extras that root us, like, and not even just metaphorically, right? Like it is, like it really is a thing that keeps people connected in how communities build themselves.
And that's the way I explain it too, because so many people are always asking me why I'm so involved at the Playhouse and why I spend, you know, if I'm directing a show or I'm in a show, I'm there 3 nights a week. Plus I'm there for other meetings and other things. And I'm a full-time teacher. Yeah. And so other people will be like, why are you committed to something like 3 nights a week and this thing and that? And I always say to people, it fills my bucket. Like it's busy, but it really fills my bucket. It keeps me like really grounded. It keeps me really happy and positive. Yeah. And even though I don't get as much sleep as I should some nights, it's doing more good for me than it is to... I'm not one to sit at home and twiddle my thumbs either. So that keeps me good,
So the Medicine Musical Theater in and of itself is an interesting community story, right? Just how it was formed and funded and all of those pieces. Can you tell me a little bit about its history?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been around for... it started in the 1960s. Yeah. And don't ask me to say the exact year, but it was about the early 1960s. And it was a group of folks that, you know, got together with that same goal to provide some theater experiences for our community. And it was folks that kind of put their own heart and soul onto the line and their own money onto the line to get it started, right? And just had a vision for this space to do that in our city. And then it's evolved so much because I think there's been just kind of different eras of boards and groups of people that have evolved the theater into something, you know, closer to what we see it as today. Right. When they started, they didn't have a home. Yeah. They did one show a year in the fall, generally, I think. And then I think it was about 40-ish years into its existence that they invested in a space for themselves. And like, again, it's that group goal and that community of working towards it, right? They invested in a space. They've put all this work and volunteer work into creating it into this really welcoming theater space, and taking care of all the technical aspects of shows with like a wood shop and to build sets and all the tech and all the things, the costume thing blows my mind. If you ever are upstairs in the Playhouse, you can see like there's a whole loft full of costumes and costumes hanging from the ceiling. And there's people that actually know what each of those things are and what their shows are from.
You can do a little Halloween rental shop.
That's a little side gig, right? But it's just that shared goal. And I mean, now we've gotten to the point where we do 4 shows a year.
Wow.
You know, starting from 1. And that's only in the last...
Yeah. And does that ever overlap in terms of getting ready?
Oh, constantly.
Wow.
Yeah. So we do 4 shows a year, kind of like October, Christmas time, February-ish, and then like April-ish. Okay. Give or take a bit. It fluctuates a little bit. But you're almost always auditioning for the next show. Yeah. Sometimes 2 shows ahead, depending on the timeline, while the current show is rehearsing or going on. Wow. And so it's incredible. I mean, you think of our city is not super huge, but the level of talent that we have that are filling those roles, both on stage and behind stage, for 4 shows a year. Yeah. Some people do 2, like some people will do the fall show and the spring show. Some people are doing technical aspects for all 4 shows for the year. Like it's actually like a really insane amount of moving pieces that are all happening at the same time to promote that season. And we're not the only show in town. There's a couple other theater companies that are also doing not as many shows as we're doing a year, but they're pulling from a talent pool and pulling from the tech pool and everything as well.
Lots of opportunity then.
Tons of opportunity.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And the great thing is too, is we see in every show, there's definitely like the medicine hat theater, regulars that we know, right? And I'd say at MHMT, we definitely have people that are kind of our regulars that are in a lot of shows, are involved in a lot. But in the position that I'm on the board right now, I'm so involved with all the shows. And so I get to see the casts and kind of talk with them about those things. And the amount of new people that audition for each show, that get into a cast, that are involved in tech every season. And I just keep saying to other people, where is everyone coming from? We have all these people that just keep coming out, and it's and they're finding that same thing I did there. They're finding that community piece, right? And that's what is keeping us all there. That we have a building that operates 4 shows a year, an organization. It's all volunteer run. Not a single person there is paid to do any of that work. And that's because of the passion in the community that we have there.
I had a question connected to that. I'm going to just skip ahead a little bit in my thinking here, and it was around the newcomers. So how does your theater nurture newcomers to the space? Like, so I'm imagining myself, can't sing my way out of a wet paper bag. I did when I was on staff at Crescent Heights. So this is probably a little known fact, but at Crescent Heights High School, when we were fundraising for the new theater, we actually, what turned into my classroom eventually was the old theater at the northwest corner of the school.
Okay.
So it was super tiny. It was a little bit like the black box at the Medicine Hat College.
Okay.
But a little smaller than that. Quite a bit smaller than that.
Yeah.
And so the staff would annually put on a series of 1-act plays. And we'd have like about 3 or 4, and we do a run of a week and put on these shows, and then all of the funds went towards funding the new theater. And I was in the shiny red ball. I think I still know lines from that. And it was like this used car salesman trying to sell essentially an exercise ball to another guy. So I show up. I'm a newcomer. How do you nurture people there?
You know what? It's a great question, because it's actually something that our organization has been really focusing on the last while is how are we doing that? We have so many new faces that come in to help out with a show, to audition for a show. Lots of times when people come to volunteer for us, they start out kind of in the bar or in front of house or something like that. That's a front-facing thing. And so we've been talking a lot as an organization about how do we foster these connections more? Because there definitely are people, that are very, there are a lot of people like myself that have come in and kind of found that home. And there's some people that it might take a little bit longer. And so how do we keep them engaged, and how do we show our value to them, like their value to us, and that kind of thing. And so we're actually starting a more kind of formal volunteer program where we've tasked someone to kind of be the coordinator for that, to kind of build those interests, like a data spreadsheet of, what are these people interested in? What are their skill sets? What can they bring to the organization? And in the meantime, we really kind of, when someone shows up, it does sometimes become what is your skill set? And then it's like, great, we're going to get you to do that, and we're going to get you to do these 15 other things, too, right?
Other duties as assigned.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, in an organization like ours, there's so many aspects, right? We have a lot of really great volunteers that come out to do the front of house in the bar, and that's where they like to be. And those are often people that are also auditioning for shows or helping on some capacity. Our loft crew, we call them, they're the guys that kind of keep our shop running and build the sets and work on those kind of pieces. And they've got this really great community. They get together every Saturday, and I think there's also one weeknight they get together to work on stuff for shows. They go for breakfast together, and then if they've got someone interested, it's like come for breakfast with us, get to know the guys, get to, and so so there's lots of those informal things happening. And we really, for us, it's always about that. Where is someone's talent, and how can we make that talent shine? And how can it add to our organization? And there's so many people that have come in with these just ideas that none of us have have thought about, and then it takes us in a completely different direction with, with our guest experience or with a show technical ability in a show or something like that too. So it's really about that talent, that skill set, and where can we kind of fit that puzzle piece together, kind of thing.
That's cool. You've the theater itself has done a range of classics to some fresh interpretations. Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
Oh, that's like asking a mother to name their favorite child.
Well, how about this? 'Cause it'll give you a couple options. Sure. A favorite where you've been on the directing side of things, and a favorite as a performer. Yeah. So then you get to at least pick two kids.
Yeah, that's a pick two. My favorite as a performer, we did 12 Angry Men about 3 years ago, I think now. And I was so drawn to that. I mean, I would say that 99% of what we do is musicals, comedies, comedy-musical combination, right? And so to do 12 Angry Men, the production team that brought that forward really saw a space where we could do something a little more serious in tone. And unfortunately, I mean, that play was written 60 years ago, and the content is still so relevant to the world, right?
It's like it went from less relevant to
there would be things relevant that were in the script. I remember when we were rehearsing that we'd all look at each other and say, like, this is actually like happening in the news right now. And but playing a role that was more serious, feeling the audience buy into it. Yeah. Like it's getting, I mean, I said at the beginning, like getting that first laugh was kind of the thing that hooked me. Getting a laugh, especially when someone else has written the funny line, like that can be more easy. Yeah. But getting an audience to come on that journey with you in this jury room and the different personalities and the couple guys at the table that are definitely have the racial prejudices that are permeating their opinions of things. It was an experience I've never had on stage. Like to feel that pin drop, and they were with you. And my character was the very meek, mild one, number 2, and he's the one that would get up at the kind of the end when the one really racist guy is kind of going on his tirade. Yeah. My character was the one that would stand up and kind of slap his hand on the table and be like, "I've heard enough," and and it was very out of character for him to do that. Right. And it was really fun every night to be that person and then have the audience like be behind me like, yeah, like stick it to him. And, that was really special for me. Yeah. And it was great to do it with 11 other guys. Yeah. Because in community theater, in any city or any small town, community theater is 80% women and 20% men. It's always so much harder to find men that are acting or do it. You're always, if you have a big heavy male cast, you're always going to be kind of stressed about that. And I mean, they found 12 guys and they had way more than that auditioned. Really? Like it was just that experience of just being in that cast that way too was great. Directing, I don't even have to think twice about it. I directed a show 2 years ago called Mambo Italiano. Okay. I had seen the movie. So the story is a queer man in Montreal whose parents are Italian immigrants. He's obviously first generation Canadian. And he's hiding the secret that he's gay, and he's living with his boyfriend, who's also a closeted Italian, and the families are all connected, and and he kind of comes out of the closet inadvertently and outs the partner in the same process. And it's all about how the families react and how their relationship gets tested and all those kind of things. And I saw that movie because there was a movie version that came out about the same time as my Big Fat Greek Wedding. So like 20-ish years ago. Yeah. And it was right around the same time that I was kind of starting to realize my own queer identity. And so I watched that movie with the volume like super low in my parents' basement at like 2 a.m. because I wanted to see a character like myself. And it was the first character like myself that I saw. And I saw, from this big, loud Catholic family, which is what I'm from. And like, we're German Catholics, so it's slightly different, but similar tendencies. Yeah. And so it was a story that I was just so passionate about. And I knew there was a play version. And then I ended up ordering the script probably about 8 years before I actually directed it. And I would read the script over and over again, and I would start to see how it was going to come together.
Right.
And obviously because of my own story, it was such a passion project for me. And we just had this, it was this amazing experience where the crew and the cast, like everybody just gelled so well together. Everyone had that, that unified vision of it with me. And I could just feel like everyone was behind me in wanting to bring this thing to the stage and get this story out there. And it was a journey. Like there was rehearsals where I would be like bawling in the corner while they're doing stuff, and then laughing my head off after. And they'd be, every night, similar to that 12 Angry Men experience. It was much more funny. It is a comedy play, but it had these very serious undertones of these family connections and how they react to this queer identity, and every night feeling the audience as an audience member. I mean, I sat kind of up above the audience on the tech rail, but feeling them kind of laughing and having fun. And then there's this really pivotal scene where everything kind of hits the fan, and the main character kind of has it out with his Italian family, and you could just feel everyone like stop, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, and now I'm crying and I don't know why that happened. And like, and that was, it was unreal as a director. And it was the first kind of big show. I had directed a smaller radio play kind of thing before that. And it was the first kind of bigger show that I took on. And it was such a special experience for all those things.
And does that bond kind of last? You think of teams that win championships or...
Oh yeah. We were just talking about Sister Act not long ago, a group of us that were in it. Unfortunately, the director of Sister Act just recently passed away. And so when we were all kind of sitting around and at his funeral and talking about different things, we just got talking about that show. And like that bond, like we all were having so much fun. And like we were like, we'd just get together again and do it, right? And I find that with so many shows. Like you really... it's like I said, it's a vulnerable place to be in. You're working towards the shared goal. You're having crazy amounts of laughs along the way. You're spending, 6 or 3 days a week together, and then during the run of the show, you're spending like every day together. And I always say I go through withdrawal a little bit after, because you're going through things in your own life with these people, and then all of a sudden that whole support system is gone. But those bonds definitely, I think, last for a long time, because I would say that there's shows that I've been in with so many people that you just have that connection and that shared appreciation for that type of show or that experience that you had. And I've been in situations where something gets said at a public event and a person and I can look at each other from across the room and know we're laughing about the same stupid thing that happened in this rehearsal like 10 years ago. Right. And so, yeah.
So I'll shift gears just slightly. You co-hosted your own podcast, Canada Out of the Closet, storytelling, history, identity work. What inspired you to start that project?
Well, I'm a storyteller by nature, and I believe firmly in the power of stories in how they can help other people and help an understanding. When I came out of the closet, I was 22. I have a pretty big church background, and so obviously there was a lot of those things to work through to get to that point. And for me, it was hearing the stories of other people. I would read some kind of online blogs that people had put out there, or some books that people had put out about their experiences in coming out. And it really helped me to see, like, there's a path, there's a way to do this and to be who you are authentically. And Mambo Italiano was one of those things for me, right? Which is why I was so passionate about it. And so I started thinking about, I wanted to get some stories out there. And to me, I mean, I live in a part of our country that can be not always the safest for queer individuals. And so I just feel so much strongly that the negativity towards queer people, hatred towards queer people, comes from a lack of understanding and a lack of knowing. And once you know a little bit more about it, or somebody and can put a face to something, it becomes harder for you to feel negatively about it or to hate it, right, or whatever.
Yeah, but he's a good guy.
Yeah. Right. And so, I wanted to start getting those stories out there, and it started for me actually as a play project. I thought about the town I grew up in, so Leader, where I mean Scepter, Leader, it's the same thing. Yeah. But like, I was thinking of one night about the queer people who grew up there or who had a connection to that town in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. There's 2 girls that are about a decade older than me who came out of the closet about a decade before I did. Yeah. And then when I came out 10 years later, like the same people who said some really awful things about those 2 people were saying really positive things about it when I came out. And so it was just, I think that in some ways those 2 kind of paved that path where they were the first from our generation of people or to kind of come forward and do that. And then it allowed people to start processing and thinking about how they felt about it. Yeah. And then, there's other people from different generations, and there's teachers that have come in and out of Leader that have been queer and have impacted students in a way too. And so I just started thinking about, a story where, or a play where it could kind of be like monologues about everyone's experience around the same community. And it was this idea I had on the back burner forever. And then COVID hit and suddenly I had all this free time to do stuff. So I started thinking about, okay, well, maybe I want to interview some people to do research for this play project. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to interview people, I might as well do something with this information. And I had kind of gotten into podcasts, like listening to them and more. And I did a little research about what would I have to do if I did this and what would it, what kind of costs would it be and what equipment and stuff. And it just felt very tangible to me as something I could do. And I had all this time on my hands with COVID. I was in the middle of doing my degree, but we had shifted, kind of half online and half and all these things. And so, so I kind of started saying, okay, if I was going to do this, I want to look beyond my little small town that I grew up into. Yeah. And ironically, never actually interviewed anyone from the small town that I grew up in.
Got the seed going.
Yeah. And I started kind of reaching out to some people that I knew to see if they would be interested in doing it. Reaching out to people I had never met, who have different levels of fame within Canada for different reasons. Yeah. And surprisingly to me, everyone emailed me back and was like, let's do this. Like, cool. And so I was like, okay, I think there's a need for these stories clearly. And so that's what we started doing. We interviewed Canadians, kind of across the queer spectrum to talk about their experiences coming out, but then also living out in this country. And we talked to people from the prairies and from Toronto and from the Maritimes, like all different places. And there was this beautiful thing where there was such different experiences, but also so much similarity in what we were talking about and in the experience that they had overall. And it was great. It was so powerful, like to sit and talk to these people. And there would be so many moments where I'd have to just be like, okay, we're going to stop for a second. I just need to regroup and just the different, I think seeing too the different ways that you can come out. It's not a black and white.
There's not a playbook.
No. And it's also something that you do. I mean, it's silly that I had never thought of this before, but through several of the guests I learned, like, it's not something you just do once and then you're done. It's something you do all the time, right? Yeah. I've done it probably 15 times in the last couple of weeks. I mean, I had parent-teacher interviews last week, so I did it probably a lot through those just conversations you're having that night, because it's the people see a picture of my husband and I behind my desk, and like, I don't even have to say anything. They that brings it out, right? So, it was great. It was a really powerful experience, and I'd still like to do something theatrical with it. Yeah, that's still on the back burner, but it was we did 3 seasons, and I learned so much. I learned so much about myself. From the process, I think too.
Okay. I have a question about that. Funny enough, my next question, going off of what you just shared, was, what did you learn about yourself in creating that safe space for people? That people are probably sharing some really personal stories.
Oh yeah. The thing that surprised me the most was how much of my own internal homophobia I had not worked through. You know, when you're in the closet, you kind of create this fake version of yourself. And you think you're good at it. I mean, when you come out of the closet, you tell people, and some people are like, okay, like we saw the signs, but you think you're good at hiding things, and some things you are, but you're so focused on this version of yourself that's not authentic and making sure that's what people are seeing. And then when you come out, you have to really actually figure out who you are and what pieces of that person are actually you and what pieces can kind of go away after. And so when we were, and I always say internalized homophobia, because you do, when you're in the closet and you're worried about how people are going to react. Right. And I think for me, growing up in a small town where there's not as many queer people that are out and kind of that experienced person for you to look up to, you kind of create this narrative in your head of, I can't be this way for these reasons, right? And I mean, for me, the church played a huge role in that. And so when I came out of the closet in 2013, 2014, kind of across that winter, I remember saying to people, like, being gay is just something I happen to be. It's not this defining thing about me. I don't actually want to talk about it all the time, right? And then I lived that way for like a long time. And I would always say that to people. And what I was actually saying, and I learned this through talking to other people, is I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to push this on someone else. I want them to feel comfortable about who I am and not feel... I want to kind of please everyone is what I was actually doing. And so there was tons of, talking to people and their experiences and hearing the way that they viewed an interaction with somebody, or hearing them talk about how they would, let people misgender them if they were transgender, or let people misidentify their label on the queer spectrum and kind of get away with it, but then realize how much it was actually hurting them to let people do that. And I sat back and was like, oh, am I doing this? Like, am I also kind of pleasing people and not rocking the boat in the way that I need to rock the boat? And there's no right way to be gay or to be queer or to be whatever. But I found that I wasn't fully in, actually, and which is such a silly thing to do. Like, I wasn't dating women. I wasn't like, my now husband and I were together, and I still wasn't fully in. I was still letting some of those walls that I had put up exist. And I started to realize, I think, how much that was actually impacting my relationship with many people in my life, particularly my family too. Like, I started actually with my therapist then talking about how, so much of what I kind of felt was maybe like a difference between a family member and I was actually rooted in this wall that shouldn't even exist, because it's a wall that I put up when I was in the closet, and I just didn't know how to dismantle it now. And so, I learned a lot about that internal homophobia and kind of knocking it out of the park, and actually being able to think a little bit more okay with standing up and being proud of who I am. I'm still not someone who's going to go to a pride parade, just not my thing. And for people that do that, power to you, like, do that. That's your way to spread the message. I think my way is more through podcasting and advocacy and things like that I do. And that's, I think, what I learned too, is like, there's no right way to do it. It's what works for you, and what you can give back to that community.
So if I could marry the theater experience and let's call it the storytelling experience of podcasting, how do you see those building the right kind of empathy?
I think that it allows you to step in. I mean, theater really blatantly allows you to step into somebody else's shoes, right? If you're a performer, you're really thinking about that person, and you're being someone else, and you're having just builds that capacity for empathy,
Yeah.
right? The same thing with the podcasting. I mean, for someone listening to our podcast, I think it builds an empathy for someone who's different than you in some way, because you're hearing what it was like for them to go through this experience of coming out.
Yeah.
I had several people reach out to us to say, I didn't actually even realize the way my actions as, you know, a doorknob 16-year-old,
Right.
when I was calling someone, you know, slurs,
Right.
I didn't actually know, and I haven't thought since then about how much that was negatively impacting somebody. I was just being a dumb teenager.
Yeah.
And now I actually understand, and I know people that listen to our show that actually got a hold of these people to connect and apologize and kind of make it right? And so I think that really is what my goal has been with both of those things, is to create that space for that. And like I said earlier, when you hear and you listen to someone's story, it's hard for you to feel negatively towards them and to not have a little bit more understanding.
Yeah.
And I think I'm such a firm believer that if we could really understand the differences that are between us as different groups of people, it would make our world just so much a better place, right?
Across all sorts of spectrums of politics and like all those
and
pieces.
I think the best thing that we did too was I had a co-host, John Whidden, who is like cisgender, white, straight guy. And when I first kind of got this idea to bring him in, a few people in my circle were like, why would you want a straight white guy to come on and be a part of this conversation about coming out? And I said, because he's going to ask questions that I won't think of, right? When I'm talking to someone about coming out, I can assume things. I don't have to ask about their family background or ask about how a family member react. Like just from listening to their story, I can kind of piece that together. Whereas John would be the one that would kind of stop and be like, okay, wait a minute. Let's just like, why did this happen? Why? And then I heard from so many people who are not queer that was kind of their was that he was asking the questions that they were, I think, too afraid in their own circle to ask. Didn't want to be offensive to, which is great that they're thinking that way. I don't want to offend this person. But then they found the space to understand it, right?
So going off of that, who have been kind of key collaborators or mentors for you along the way?
Definitely which is the most cliche gay thing to say, definitely my high school drama teacher. Shout out to Pamela Seifert. But yeah, like, I think when I think about what she did for me, I was a kid who was so deeply in the closet, and I've never asked her, like, did you know? She probably did. But like, she was the first adult in my life outside of my kind of nuclear family that really created a safe space for me to just be myself before I even knew that I needed that. And I, especially as a teacher now, I look back on the things she did for me, the space that she created with a drama program, the connections that she made for me. She got me involved with the organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils, which is these like touring performers in Saskatchewan and visual arts and things. And she's the reason that I have this theater community and this kind of world of artists that I'm now connected to. And she created that for me. I mean, when you're in a small town, if you don't play volleyball or hockey or, it's hard to sometimes find that community. And she saw in me, and I think a few other students too, that that wasn't our place. And so she created it for us. And I'm eternally grateful, to that. And then I think, it would be so hard to name like all these people, right? But I think about her, and I think for me, it's really two teachers. So it would be her and then this other teacher that we had for only about a couple years in Leader. And he was queer, not really like out to the students. Like at that time, it wasn't something that was as acceptable as it is now. But we all kind of knew. The guy had I always bugged him about this after, like, he had a cast album of like B. Arthur or something. And I was like, you weren't really hiding. But he, again, was the first kind of queer adult that existed in my life that I looked at and was like, oh, I can have these things. I can be a successful person in my career. I can have friends. I can have this little circle of people and all those things and still actually be queer. Yeah. And that was a game changer for me. It was years. I mean, he taught me in grade 9, and it was many, many, many years until I was able to actually accept who I was. Yeah. And then more years after that before I came out of the closet, right? Yeah. But I would say that those two definitely are probably the biggest impact, and I think have a lot to do with why I'm a teacher now. You know, they're people that created safe spaces for me, that created a sense of belonging. I always talk to my students on the first day of school about the difference between fitting in and belonging. And I want you to belong. If you're fitting in, you're changing something of yourself to kind of be with the group, right? And I want you to be here authentically as you are, and be cared for and be loved in the space for that. Right. And that's what those two did for me without even identifying it to me. And it's something I wish that I saw a little bit more at the time. I think it would have maybe changed the trajectory of kind of how early adulthood played out for me. But I don't know if I would have made it to where I am without those safe spaces, right? Yeah.
When you apply that kind of thinking to, let's say, being on the board of the musical theater or a director, and you're seeing somebody who, you think needs to take that risk or have a little push, or maybe they're just stuck. Like what is your path given you to help give people that nudge to take a chance?
I think just being able to like identify that I can be a safe person for them. I never want to, you don't want to push someone into something, right? Yeah. You don't want to, but my thing has always been kind of just, I'm going to come alongside you. I'm going to stand next to you, and I'm going to help you navigate this. Yeah. And I'm going to let you be in the driver's seat, right? You're going to tell me what you need, and I'm going to help make that happen. And yeah, I as a director, you're taking these, right now I'm directing a show with 7 women. We just started rehearsals yesterday actually for it. And it's 7 women from different walks of life and from different things. And I'm kind of finding this way to meld them together into this group. And they've done a wonderful job of it without me. But yeah, I think for me, it's like, I'm going to be the safe person who's not going to knock you down when you don't succeed the first time, and who's going to kind of come alongside you and help you get across that line in the way that works for you. And I'm not going to impose what I think is the right way, which is something that I think my teaching career and my experience with my podcast and other things has taught me, right? There's no right way. If this is the right way for me, I'm going to share my experiences so that you kind of maybe understand how I got here. But we're going to find the way for you to do it too. And so, I think that's, for me, it's really just about, I'm going to walk alongside you. I'm going to meet you where you're at, and I'm going to get you to your destination. It's not my destination for you. I have ideas, and I'm probably going to get you there eventually, but I'm going to let you take the path that you think is the best way for it.
It's funny. That made me think of, it was one of my first years of teaching. And I was at Crescent Heights, and I was coaching 2 volleyball teams at the same time. I was coaching the A girls and the B girls, and it was kind of an accident that I ended up also coaching the B girls. They couldn't find a coach. They had somebody come in, but I had already spent some time with them, and it was kind of like baby geese bonding, right, with the coach. So I ended up coaching both these teams, and so I coached the grade 9 team, which was a really skilled team in a way that I thought you were supposed to coach, because I didn't have tons of experience as a coach. And the B team, who I kind of thought were terrible, I tried to just make it fun, and let's create a team here where we all like each other and can come and spend some time, because I couldn't handle being that way with both groups.
Yeah.
Well, the group that should have been good, we ended up terrible. And the group that was lousy, we won the league.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I learned something about myself. and maybe that doesn't apply to every single group. And sometimes there's individuals who need to be pushed and those sorts of things. But I know for me, when I put my head down on the pillow every night, that I know which coach I like being the best. And and that really informed huge parts of other pieces of my life as a leader and other things.
I look at my own trajectory, and I apply this with my students now. Like when I came out of high school, I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was like in grade 2. And when I graduated high school, I wasn't in a place where I could successfully do that. Yeah. I didn't have other parts of I didn't have safety in who I was. I didn't have the support system that I needed. I didn't have those things. Yeah. And so if I would have tried, I would have burnt out and failed miserably. And then I went back to school when I was 28 to start my ed degree. Yeah. I had worked through all those things. I was in a safe place. I had a support system. I felt loved, seen by people. I had all these things. And then I graduated as student of the year. Yeah. Like I don't say that to brag, but like right. I wouldn't have done that at 18 to 22. And I always say, I have student teachers that come in now and again and different things that work in my room. And when they want to ask questions, I always say to them, nothing matters more in this classroom than relationships. Yeah. Nothing you could plan the best lessons. You could have all these little things checked off. Differentiation is going to be great. All these entry points. But if those kids don't feel connected to you and feel loved and supported and safe in this room, none of that's going to happen. Yeah. Right. And so that's really guided my approach as a teacher and as a director and as other, kind of leadership roles that I take on in my life is this is a community where we all belong, we all feel safe, and we're going to work on this together. Yeah. And without that, I don't think it would be as successful for me as it has been, or, I wouldn't be doing the plays that I'm doing. I just wouldn't be doing what I do now without being able to get to that place and realize those things.
I'm going to say that you are either the best or the worst guest that I've had. It's because I actually can't read my own questions. But it's like you have read the question and start
answering them.
Because it was the what I was thinking about next was around, so the Travis of 10 years ago, or let's say the Travis that comes out of high school to the Travis now, how is he different? And you've kind of articulated that.
Yeah, I did. Pretty clearly. Sorry. Yeah. You know what? I never want, because I had people that loved me. Yeah. I had family. I had good connections coming out of high school. But I didn't love myself then. Yeah. And that was the missing piece. Yeah. And so I think the Travis of 10 years ago to the 15 years ago, right. When I came out of high school, that Travis to this Travis that's the difference. Yeah. It's somebody who actually knows who they are fully and loves themselves for that. And that's what's able, I think, to help me put that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a life lesson there. What are you learning now?
I think I'm learning balance now is my thing, right? Like I kind of went from being like, I had to figure out all this stuff in my life, my personal life, then to, kind of being like I don't know if overachiever is the right word, but also I think a bit of a people pleaser and like, I like to tick off the boxes and so the thing I'm learning for myself now, I think is balance and grace for myself. That when things don't go the way I want them to go, to kind of navigate that, but also to kind of have that balance in life and have some quiet time and appreciate that and embrace some downtime. Yeah. I don't always do well with downtime. I get squirrely and I get like, I need a project all the time, and I'm learning to embrace the balance of downtime and maybe being a teacher helps, because there's like, you go hard for 10 months and then
crash.
And then, exactly. Right.
You get sick at Christmas time.
Yeah. You don't actually enjoy Christmas break because you're running to family things, and then you get sick, and then, so.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about that balance piece the last couple of years. It's part of what the decision that I made to retire. Probably where people don't not necessarily retire at a stage like where I was at. And it was around, it was lifestyle centric planning is kind of the phrase that I had gotten from a guy that I follow, Cal Newport. And it was less about, like, lots of people talk about work-life balance, and it was more about work-life integration. And I latched onto that notion of integration. How are the things that I'm choosing to do in my life, how do they integrate into my life? Are they making me better and fulfilling me in a way? And because it isn't, because I don't think that work and life, and you haven't said work-life balance. You've talked about balance, but I think people naturally go there. That these are two diametrically opposed things, and they're not. They can be integrated together, and that can be same with a hobby or a community commitment or any of those pieces. And I think if we can do that in a healthy way, you won't have people that necessarily feel like they have to crash on the other side of that, right? Yeah. And
I think that it's because people do naturally think about work-life balance, right? Yeah. And I actually think sometimes that, like, that's not something I stress about. Like, my work, sometimes there's weeks where work takes up more hours than other things, right? And that's never been something, but it's also like the ability to then balance what I'm doing outside of work, like that, to keep that stuff kind of healthy. And I've actually started to look at the work that I do outside of my job and say, like, is this actually bringing me joy? Like, it's something that I'm doing. I like it, but am I actually enjoying it? Yeah. And if I'm not, then I want to sit back and think about that. Like, and I like that integration part of it. Like you said, like that, can these things kind of live together in harmony?
Right.
And if one thing's off, is that going to throw the rest of the cart off too?
Yeah.
Like,
you said you had your first rehearsals last night. When does that one come out?
February.
Okay.
We're doing the play's called POTUS.
Okay.
I don't know if I can say the full title. There's a swear word in it. Is that allowed? But it's POTUS, or Behind Every Great Dumb Something. Yeah. Are 7 women trying to keep them alive.
Okay.
And it's a satire comedy, farcical comedy, that these 7 women that are kind of around the president of the United States, and he's a little unhinged. The playwright's very specific that it's not one particular president that this is about. That's exactly what it says at the beginning. This is an amalgamation of several presidents. And so he's just creating these, PR nightmares everywhere, and these women are trying to kind of right the ship. And it's hilarious. My husband and I saw it in New York. And I looked at him in intermission and said, I am directing this. This is unreal. And then the second act gets even crazier. And I looked at him at the end of the show and I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to direct this. And so, we just started rehearsals yesterday. Cool. And then it'll be running in February at the Playhouse. So,
well, this probably doesn't come out until April or May.
So it'll already be done then.
Right,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time to join me, and
thanks for having me. It was great.
Cover the gamut. That was good. Other than the dog barking nonstop.
That just shows that it's a real life situation. Right?
Motivation Local is produced by Table 4 Productions with the generous support of TELUS STORYHIVE. You can find our episodes on Optic TV, at our website, motivationlocal.com, on our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our producer is Corey Sadlemyer. Our theme music was composed by Medicine musical artist Snakes and the Riot. As always, thanks for watching or listening to our podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard here, Don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel or to leave us some feedback.